Welcome to Keto Meals and Recipes.com. Today I'm demonstrating an easy-to-make keto beef stew using the authentic technique and ingredients from Julia Child's beef bourguignon recipe. The macronutrient ratio for the version without pearl onions is 1.8 to 1, with 4.1 grams of total carbs per serving, and the version with the pearl onions has a ratio of 1.7 to 1 and 6.2 grams of total carbs. We begin by preheating the oven to 160 degrees Celsius or 325 degrees Fahrenheit. In her cookbook, Julia Child recommends getting a full chuck roast and cutting it yourself into uniform 5 centimeter or 2-inch cubes. The uniform cube sizes will allow for even cooking. Next, place the large skillet or French oven on the stovetop over moderate heat. Add and heat up the oil. Add the pork belly or unflavored bacon and saute for 3 to 5 minutes until just turning a light golden and crispy brown. Scoop out the pork belly or bacon and set aside for later. Pour your red wine into a small saucepan and bring to a light rolling boil for a few minutes. Then set that aside. Before adding the meat to the skillet, reheat the bacon fat until it is hot and sizzling, and thoroughly dry the cubes with a paper towel, otherwise the meat will not brown and crisp up properly. Add half of the meat, leaving plenty of room between the cubes so they saute evenly on all sides. When the bottom is crispy and brown, use your tongs and rotate the meat so that all sides are browned. Then remove and set aside. Repeat with the second batch of meat. When the second batch is done, scoop it out and set all the meat aside for later. In the same skillet, use the remaining fat to cook the carrots and the onions. Cook for a couple minutes, then return your beef and pork belly or bacon back into the skillet or French oven and immediately season by tossing with salt and pepper. Add the boiled wine, stir to remove the fond from the bottom of the pot. Add the beef stock so that the stock is covering the meat. Then add the tomato paste, garlic, thyme, and crumbled bay leaf. Then stir and bring back to a simmer on the stove top. Cover your pot or French oven with a lid and place it into the lower third of your oven. Cook for 2 to 3 hours so that it will gently simmer. This slow cooking at a lower temperature will give the meat its tenderness. While the beef bourguignon is in the oven, you can prepare the rest of the vegetables. Use a small pan set over moderate heat and add the butter and the quartered mushrooms. Add the pearl onions, saute until the mushrooms are done. Then remove from heat and set everything aside, leaving it in the skillet. After a couple hours in the oven, test to see if the meat is done. You will know the beef is done when you can pierce it easily with a fork. If not quite done and the meat is not falling apart easily, return to the oven and cook for a bit longer. The time required will depend on how large your chunks of meat were when you began. When the meat is done, remove from the oven and strain the sauce through a sieve to separate it from the meat, onions, and carrots. With the sauce separated, you should have a total of about 3 cups. Put the sauce into a small deep pot. Taste for seasoning and adjust if needed, but be careful not to add too much salt, as it will taste saltier when you have reduced the liquid some more. Put the meat and vegetables back into the casserole pot or into a serving tureen. Then add your sautéed mushrooms and onions. Leave the pot uncovered for the meat to cool. If you place a cover on the pot while the meat is hot, the meat will have an acidic taste. There's a significant way this recipe is different from Julia Child's. To thicken the sauce, I use glucomannan rather than flour, which Julia used at the beginning of her recipe. The glucomannan is a great thickener that is tasteless and makes for a clear sauce. I dilute 1 tablespoon of glucomannan in a cup of cold water. Stir until the glucomannan is completely dissolved and then add immediately into the sauce by continually stirring. As you pour the glucomannan fluid mix, you will prevent lumps from forming in your sauce. Next, put the pot on the stovetop over low heat. Stirring continuously, reduce and thicken the sauce until you have a gravy that coats the back of a spoon. This might take about 5 minutes, but be careful not to burn your sauce. If your sauce has gotten a bit too thick, either because your heat was too high or you cooked it a little bit too long, don't worry, just add a little bit of water, reduce your heat, stir briskly, and cook for 1 to 2 minutes. Then remove the gravy from heat and immediately pour over the meat and vegetables and stir the ingredients. Serve this beef bourguignon either hot or cold in a serving tureen or arrange in individual plates. If you choose, you can garnish with fresh parsley. Following the cooking instructions, as per Julia Child's methodology, will produce the authentic French taste of the beef bourguignon. Thank you for taking the time to watch this demonstration. See you next time. Julia Child recommends serving this dish with either rice or potatoes, as they do in France. However, we substitute the rice with cauli rice, and I substitute potatoes with jicama French fries. I would suggest seasoning the fries with only salt and pepper if you're serving the jicama French fries with the beef bourguignon as a side dish.